This story comes from the point of view of my dad, who experienced something strange in our Oregon home. Just to give you an idea of the layout, there's a living room with a staircase smack in the middle that leads upstairs, where there's a hallway with 3 different rooms. As you walk from the farthest room from the end of the hallway, the floor creaks slightly but makes a distinct sound just as you're about to reach the top of the staircase. It breaks the silence. So if, for whatever reason, you're trying to sneak your way downstairs, you will be unsuccessful. Now to the story. My mom and I had gone out grocery shopping. We lived in a rural area, so we were gone most of the day as we needed to get quite a few things done. My dad sat at home, watching a few movies. He had finally finished his movie and continued to try and take a nap on his recliner when he heard some creaking coming from upstairs, as if someone were walking around. Now, we have 2 cats that like to hang out exclusively in his room, but will walk around and play in the hallway. This was the first thing that came to mind, but the creaking wasn't fast and it didn't sound light, like it were the cats. In fact, he took a quick look around and noticed our dogs and cats were by him, snapping and snuggling near the table and recliner. He turned to look at the staircase, and as he did this, he heard that distinct creak, like someone was just about to put their foot on the first step of the staircase. He stared for the longest time, he says, waiting for it, whatever, or whoever it was, to show itself. Nothing. Nothing at all. My dad proceeded to take a quick look in the hallway in all 3 rooms. There didn't seem to be anyone, or anything. My dad isn't really one to fall for supernatural happenings, and he can be skeptical at times. But he tells me it was the strangest thing. He swore up and down that it was the sound of someone walking through the hallway and literally stopping at the top of the stairs. I don't know what he was expecting to find, but I'm just glad whatever it was, it changed its mind. Perhaps it was a figment of his imagination. But I know I was definitely creeped out about this when he told me about it. My mother told me about one particular place, back when I was much, much younger. According to both her and my dad, they used to live in a house which they believed to be haunted. I think we even passed it a few times. I remembered it to be a 2-story house on the corner of some road. She'd point at it and tell me some of the weird things that happened in the house. Back then, before my time, they also had a dog named Chumley, and even he would react to these strange things. The house had some weird instances throughout the time they lived there. The most disturbing experience, in my opinion, was when my mother told me about a red circle she had spotted on the wall one day. She describes it as kind of looking like a wine stain. She would attempt to clean it every day, trying to remove the stain out of the wall little by little. But she noticed that it just kept getting bigger, and it was developing a deeper red color. It never went away. My mother was horrified by this, leaving it alone without trying to clean it up again. I can't remember if she said she eventually succeeded in removing it. I'm just going to assume it remained there for the duration of their stay. Another occurrence was when their dog, Chumley, started barking at their bedroom wall, right in the corner. And it wasn't that normal sounding bark, if you will. He was very aggressive and looked like he wanted to go after whatever it was he was barking at, but couldn't. Finally, there have been many instances when my mom and dad would hear noises coming from the kitchen. Silverware falling on the floor, dishes making that subtle clanking noise. You know, when you offer to take someone else's dirty plate and stack it onto yours. These instances are a bit vague, as it was told to me a long time ago, like I said. Not entirely sure if my mom and dad just endured it and stayed there until they were able to move, or if they just left the house without worrying about selling it first. I know I would have moved out of there as soon as humanly possible. This particular story was submitted by Reddit user Throwback. When I was younger, my family, older sister, brother, mother, and father lived in a tiny village in England. My dad was US military, so we were stationed out there from when I was 8 until 12. This story is from the last week that I lived in England before moving back to the States. The small village I lived in was old. When I say old, I mean old.
Some of the oldest graves in the church graveyard were from the 12th century. This village also had multiple large mansions, creepy mansions. My dad's co-worker and wife also lived in the village and rented one of the larger mansions. The mansion had a history, or rather folklore, because finding articles on what happened there are hard to come across. It's almost as if the time of when something horrific happened there is erased from the newspapers. In their house there was an old, bricked-up entrance to the cellar. The bottom of the stairs had been bricked up, filled with dirt to the top of the stairs, and the floor then bricked over. The village story is that in the 18th century, the lord of the manor took all of his children, wife, and houseworkers into the basement and brutally killed them all. The crime scene was so bad that the bodies were removed, but the basement was bricked up because of how bad it was down there. And that's just a little backstory. So we were staying with our friends in their mansion the week before we moved back to the US. One night, my dad, mom, brother, and friend and his wife were all hanging out downstairs, playing board games. My sister had gone to bed early because she was feeling sick. Around 11 p.m., my sister comes down, groggy and looking confused. She asked my dad why he had come upstairs and stood in the doorway to the guest room she was staying and just stared at her. She said she woke up because she felt someone was watching her. We all told her that none of us had left to go upstairs. She described just a black figure in the door. So my dad and his friend freaked out and thought there was an intruder, ran upstairs and checked every room, as well as every room downstairs. They found nothing, and all doors and windows were locked. A little freaked out, everyone went to bed, except me and my brother. My brother was a lot older than me, and snuck outside to smoke cigs and meet up with his friends from the village. I stayed downstairs in the office room, which had a PlayStation, and started playing games. I should also mention, the family had a large husky, who was laying at my feet while I was playing games. I then heard a tapping on the wall, but the outer side of this wall was where the entrance to the cellar used to be, so I tapped back. More tapping from the wall. So I checked the cellar entrance, and no one was in there. I thought, maybe it would have been my brother fucking with me. So I go back, sit down, and resume my game. But the dog at this point was staring at the wall, whining. And then the tapping started again, but in a pattern. So I tapped a pattern. And it copied my pattern. By this point, the dog is really getting agitated, and I'm getting freaked out. More taps came. I tried one more pattern, and it copied the pattern. I freaked out, scared shitless, and grabbed the dog, ran upstairs, and crawled into the other bed in the spare room my sister was in, with the dog. I finally started drifting off to sleep when the dog growled at the doorway. I looked at the doorway, saw the dark outline of a figure. It was there for a few seconds and then drifted away out of sight. My sister, who I thought was asleep, said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yes." So she crawled into my bed and we both held onto the dog, and eventually I fell asleep. We talk about this story till this day, and this happened in 2001, before 9/11. We're both in our late 20s and it still freaks us out. If I can convince her to get on Reddit to verify this story, I will have her do so. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more content. I will try to upload every week, but I did just start this channel, so any feedback, comments, or questions would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you guys next time.